Professional foresters assist in the proper management of forest resources. They work intensively to keep up with the increasing global demand for lumber, pulp and paper, fiber, and green energy. In addition, professional foresters must deal with multiple use demands and purposes beyond just log production. Wildlife habitat is also important, and by controlling forest vegetation, animals can thrive in these settings. Working with the fish and wildlife agencies, foresters like Mark Sheldall and Mike Warjone have learned that elk take advantage of logging and reforestation practices in the western United States to find desirable forage.
Real quick, it became very apparent that the deer and elk especially, were completely dependent on literally following our logging and mining out the species, because that's what they were doing. They were coming out. So by year 3, they had eaten every species out of our plantation, and we're moving on to the next new clear cut because that's where it was growing up and coming back like this. They were eating everything.
As we spray, we remove a lot of the herbaceous plants and grass that would compete with the Douglas fir trees. But as it turns out, that opens up a seed bed for a lot of the woody brush that the deer and elk really like. And we didn't realize that this was happening until we built fences like this to keep the deer and elk out, and we noticed a real explosion of the woody brush. And so as it turns out, our activity on the land is actually increasing the amount of available forage for the big ungulates like deer and elk.
2,4-D is valuable for selective control of brush and broadleaf weeds, for tree establishment, invasive weed control, and weed resistance management. Control of noxious weeds is shown to release more desirable plants for the elk herd. It is possible to manage these working lands for multiple uses. Landowners grow trees as a renewable resource while living in harmony with wildlife. Herbicides used to manage forests are tested and registered by state and federal government and highly regulated.
So in forestry, we use herbicides as a tool, among other tools, to manage vegetation. So the whole idea is to be growing trees after we log stands like this or bigger. We come back in, we need to plant trees by state law, and it's the thing we do to grow and keep perpetual wood flow for our forests. So oftentimes we do what we call forest site preparation, where we spray the herbicides on the vegetation to control them, knock them back, so when we plant the following winter, we plant trees by hand, one at a time, and those trees therefore have no shade, they have lots of opportunity to pick up the water, the nutrients, and establish their roots and take off and grow.
In forests where vegetation is controlled with herbicides, trees grow faster and bigger. Certified forester Bruce Albers conducted research to prove this fact.
Way back in 1994, Don Wallace and I did some plot work. We did that. The area was logged, used a tractor to scarify the area, in other words, scrape off the brush, planted trees, and on one site we sprayed herbicides to control the grasses and the forbs, and the other side of the area we did not. We've been measuring those trees for 17 years now, and at year 2 you could see a large difference in the tree size. You had a bigger caliper, a much larger root system in the area that grew with very little weed competition. And the other tree was a good healthy tree, but it did not have as big a roots or big as pop. So at that point the trees were about twice as big in the weed-free area, and we followed those trees over the last 17 years. And of course, with one application of herbicides, the grasses came back, the weeds came back, but the trees that started off bigger stayed bigger. And when they stayed bigger, they grew faster and never looked back.
2,4-D enables forest managers to maximize production on limited working land acreage, follow state-regulated herbicide practices to protect land resources, and increase the amount of available forage for wildlife.